Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half an hour or so. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live Thursdays at 6 p.m. Programming note for those of you who tune in on a weekly basis, and thank you for that, by the way. Next week, we actually have an early start to the show. We'll be on at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, not 6, because our wonderful Blue Jays have a game scheduled to start at 6, and we don't conflict with live games, not when the games mean anything. So, yes, that's next week. But for this week, here we are at our regular day and time, Thursday, 6 p.m. And you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. You can follow along live. Excuse me. And if you are following along and you think of a question or a comment, please do send it on in. I love that interaction with the audience. I think it makes the show that much better. And if you're not tuning in live, but you still want to check us out, great. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can catch the archive version on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or you can download and listen on a radio podcast. Any quality podcast carrier. who knew that was a tongue twister? But yeah, you can find Jays from the Couch everywhere. Speaking of Jays from the Couch, there's lots of other quality content. There's our main podcast, which is Mondays at 6 p.m. That's hosted by Shaun Doyle, who's always got lots of interesting material to share. And the On Fact Circle, Tuesdays at 6 p.m., starring Steve Feck. Excuse my cough. My very unique colleague. He is intelligent, he's fun, he's funny, he's unique, and he's always got lots of interesting stuff. So hope you're tuning into all of those shows, and definitely check them out if you haven't been. So, happy Thursday evening. How's everything going? I hope everything is good. Certainly is for me. After our Blue Jays just swept away those White Sox, swept them right out of town. Nice to see Charlie Montoyo again. I hope he's doing well there. Unfortunate that apparently he refused all interview requests. I mean, that's his right. If he doesn't want to talk to the media, he doesn't have to do it. Personally, as a fan, I always liked Montoyo, certainly as a person, usually as a manager. Some people didn't like him as a manager. I would have loved to know that he's doing well, but maybe another time. In any case, he was in town with the White Sox, who our Blue Jays just beat handily, as we know. So fantastic. Excuse me a moment. All right, so leading off, as always, the transactions. And finally, during this last 7-day or so period, there was a transaction of significance. So Adam Cimber, unfortunately, right-handed relief pitcher, has been put on the injured list with a right rhomboid strain. Being a sports fan, one thing that I find is I'm always learning new things. For one thing, I'm learning about body parts and muscles and bones and this and that I really never knew existed. I mean, I went to high school, several years ago, and I don't remember anything about learning about a rhomboid in biology class. If we did, I forgot about it. And if we didn't, well, I just learned something new. But Adam Cimber, as we'll all remember, the Blue Jays back in 2021 were struggling with the bullpen, very badly needed bullpen help. And so they acquired Cimber in a midseason trade from the Miami Marlins. He was traded to the Jays. And in the rest of 2021, in 39 games for the Jays, He had a very fine 1.69 ERA, so excellent for Simber with the Jays in 2022, or in 2021, excuse me. 2022 was his first full season with the Jays. Earned run average was a little bit higher, 2.80, still quite good. He was in 77 games, which led all of Major League Baseball in appearances. So, personally, I have to wonder if he was a little bit overworked there, and maybe that led to something, or maybe not. Maybe he's just getting older. Who knows? So far for Simber in 2023, it's been a bit of a different story. He has an ERA of 4.5. He hasn't been nearly as effective as he has been for the Jays in the past. That's over 11 games, and his last outing to date anyway was this past Sunday, and he came in and got the final 3 outs of a Blue Jays victory. But I mean, even as I remember saying on Twitter, Simber isn't fooling anybody. Even the outs have been hit very, very hard, and they were either right at a defender, or a defender made a terrific play on them. So he hasn't been nearly as successful. Now, as we all know, those of us who watch the Blue Jays, in watching Adam Simber, he's never been a high velocity guy. He has that sidearm delivery with that drop down motion, and that's where he gets success, when he can um throw the hitter's timing off with his delivery and making it harder to pick up the ball from where he is, and the arm angle in that way. Now, generally speaking, in the past, he throws around higher 80s. 87 to 89, as we all know, in MLB terms nowadays, that really isn't throwing that hard. This year, his velocity has been down from that, apparently. We're talking 84, 85, and that little bit of a difference can actually make a little bit of a difference. It gives the hitters just that much more time to pick up the ball, and it's been showing in his results. So all the best to Adam Simber. I mean, if he's really got this right rhomboid strain going on, then maybe that's a part of the reason for the subpar results for the Submariner. And you know what? Maybe he can just get some rest and come back better. We all certainly hope so. And if not, then they'll have to figure out plan A, B, C, and D, and so forth. Anyway, so Simber going on the IL, so that meant that there was a roster spot and that a pitcher could be brought up. And as many of us Blue Jays fans have been waiting for a while, the day finally came. Nate Pearson, the former Blue Jays #1 prospect, and very much a top 100. I think he made top 10 at one point. Prospects in baseball. So he's been recalled. He's now with the Jays. He's pitching out of their bullpen. And Pearson, what can you say about him? I mean, very interesting story. He was drafted, I believe it was 2017. It was a compensation pick at one of those middle picks that the Blue Jays got because they lost Edwin Encarnacion to free agency. So they've had Pearson for a while in the organization. He really showed a lot of promise in the minor leagues. I think it was 2019 that he really kind of set minor league baseball on fire, so to speak. He went through 3 levels and just looked pretty much unstoppable. And I know I went to spring training in 2020. I was there the week before everything shut down, and Pearson was having an unforgettable spring. I mean, he had a bunch of strikeouts. He hadn't given up any walks or any runs. I don't think he'd given up any hits either. And he looked like he was going to be amazing. Then when we finally had baseball in 2020, he did make his major league debut. Unfortunately, things didn't go nearly as well as what many people hoped and expected. So in the past few years, there's been a mixture of subpar results various different injuries. It's at times must have seemed like he was snake bitten. Poor guy. But he's been pitching in AAA prior to the call up. So in 8 games, he has a 2.16 ERA, so that's pretty good. The thing that's a concern for me, certainly where Pearson is concerned, is the walk rate. He has a walk rate in AAA of 5.4 walks per 9 innings. That's simply not going to work. He's got to find a way to get that better under control if he's going to stay in Major League Baseball and have success. You cannot give Major League batters that many free bases and expect to keep your team in games, because it just doesn't work that way. Excuse me a second. Okay, so that's the downside. As far as the upside, the potential, high fact, the rhomboid muscles would be particularly troublesome for a sidearm submarine delivery. Thank you once again for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. Not something that I would have known about, but that's where your breadth and depth of experience really come in handy, the things that I don't have a clue about. So thanks again. Yeah, I mean, that's really unfortunate. We all obviously hope that Adam Simber can come back and pitch effectively. If not, they really have to look at other options in this season, where they're really trying to go for it. Back to Nate Pearson. So yeah, the velocity, he still throws hard. And for those of you who really like high strikeout rates, especially out of the bullpen, well, hold on to your hat for this number. Nate Pearson at AAA Buffalo in 8 games this season had a rate of 17.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's almost 2 strikeouts for every inning that he pitched down there. That's pretty eye-popping. So yes, Pearson was recalled. He's gotten into 1 game so far. He's pitched 1 inning. Unfortunately, he started it off by hitting the first batter that he saw in a regular season Major League Baseball this year. Fortunately, he settled down after that. He did get a strikeout. More importantly, he didn't allow any runs. So one step at a time for Big Nate. I'm a big fan of his. I think a lot of Jays fans are. We really see the potential, and they've just got to keep working with him. And he needs to put in the work as well. And I really think he's got what it takes, that he can be successful. I've got my fingers crossed for him. So that's the transaction of significance, and I really hope Nate can be successful enough to force the Jays to keep him in the major leagues. And I mean, things happen during the season. It's inevitable. So there will be roster spots for people who are performing. So, excuse me a moment. Okay, so before I move on to the heart of tonight's order, I really feel that I want to give a shout out to a former Blue Jay. Now, at this point, this has absolutely nothing to do with the current Toronto Blue Jays, but a former Toronto Blue Jay, more of a farmhand. Yes, he did spend a little bit of time in the majors, but was never really able to find success in North American professional baseball, not to match the talent that he has. But I'm talking about Anthony Alford. So outfielder, very, very toolsy kind of player, someone who on paper you'd think would be able to, he has speed and he has power. And to find someone with the talent who is well above average at both, it's not very common, even in professional baseball. On paper, he really looked like he could be something. And for whatever reason, he was just never able to put it together, as I said, in North American professional baseball. So the majors, even the high minor leagues, unfortunately, he struggled. So, as a lot of players do, if and when they strike out, so to speak, with Major League Baseball, sometimes they find other opportunities overseas. So there's the Japanese League, there's the Korean League, there's various other leagues for people who have the talent and want to go on playing professional baseball. Anthony Alford has been playing in the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization. And as of at least 1 or 2 days ago, when I read something very encouraging on Twitter, that Anthony Alford is currently leading all of the KBO in on base plus slugging in 18 games. So, somewhat small sample size, but still, his slash line reads 386, 456, 629. So, an OPS of 1.085. Anthony Alford, as far as I know him, I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting him in person once or twice. More that I know of him and the kind of person that he appears to be, I don't know that there's a nicer person out there. To excuse me, to see him finally have the opportunity and have the success with that opportunity, with the talent that he's got. It's just, it really made my day to hear that he's doing so well. So hats off to you, Anthony Alford. Excuse me a sec. All right, so finally, on to the heart of the order. And for me, I'm watching the Toronto Blue Jays, and it may have taken me a little longer than some fans to get to this place. A number of Jays fans felt this way even in the offseason, that the team was going to be really, really good. And for me, some of the changes that they made, I saw the potential, but I also saw the potential for it to go the other way, possibly. And I really wanted to wait and see. I wanted to see what they would actually do during games. So I have begun to get very excited about the on-field product, about the results early on. I know it's 25 games. I'm so sorry about my throat. It's 25 games, which is still pretty early in the season. We've got 1 month pretty much wrapped up and another 5 to go of the regular season. So sorry about this. So our Blue Jays have a record of 16-9. That's the 5th best record in all of MLB. Unfortunately, it's currently only 3rd best in the AL East division. I fully expect the Blue Jays to improve on that. I'm going on record now and saying that they will win the division at the end of the season. So they're on pace for 104 wins. This start ties their best start after 25 games in franchise history. It's something they've done 3 other times. Excuse me a moment. Something they've done 3 other times in franchise history. And one of those seasons was 1992. And I'm sure we all remember, if we weren't around then and fans then we've all heard the stories about what a good season 1992 was for our Blue Jays. So very exciting, very encouraging. One of the reasons that the Blue Jays have done so well of late has been their starting pitching rotation. Oh my goodness. Early on in the season, when the Jays were winning, they kept getting into holes early on. They were trailing, and they had I don't even know how many comeback wins. I've kind of forgotten at this point, but yeah, the starting rotation early in the season weren't doing that great a job, but man, have they ever picked it up of late. Over their last 8 games, their earned run average as a staff is under 1. I got 0.87 in 8 games. As far as winning series, the Blue Jays have really succeeded that way. They've played 8 series so far this season, and they've won 6 of them, including sweeping away the White Sox just recently, finishing up yesterday, and they've only lost the 2 series. So you keep going like that all season, all regular season, and you're going to be in really good shape at the end of the regular season. As we all know, the other thing about their record is that they've done a majority of that while they were on the road. So for this season, they've played 16 road games and only 9 at home. So for me, between having to play that much on the road, between their team at first, the rotation wasn't doing great. Now the rotation's doing very, very well. Still waiting for a few of the bats to wake up, and I think that they will. I don't think we've seen this team firing on all cylinders at the same time the way they're capable of, but I think that that's coming, and when that comes, hold on to your hat. I think the Blue Jays are going to go on a really big run, and I think it's going to be a special season. I can kind of feel something like 2015, where in August and September of 2015, you watch the Blue Jays, and it just kind of felt like every night they were going to go out there and they were going to win. And when they didn't win, they usually did win, but when they didn't win, it was quite the surprise, almost a shock. Excuse me a second. All right then. So yes, I mean I see special things for this team. Again, the Tampa Bay Rays, they started the season with this huge win streak. Who was the first team to hand the Tampa Bay Rays a loss in the 2023 regular season? Well, that was the Blue Jays, and they even won that series 2 games to 1. Who was the first team in 2023 to take a series from the New York Yankees? Again, that was our Toronto Blue Jays. They hadn't lost a series, and until they faced the Blue Jays, they hosted the Blue Jays at Yankee Stadium, and the Jays managed to take 2 out of 3. And the other game was one that maybe they could have won, should have won, and we'll see going forward. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun to be a Jays fan at this time. It's great to sit back and see what this team has to offer. So hopefully you're all tuning in, because yeah, you definitely should be if you're not. So it's getting a little late in my show, and that's almost all that I have for you today. And that brings me to, yes, thank you, Through Blue Jays Colored Glasses. So I was taking a look at some numbers. As I said, I really believe that in the Toronto Blue Jays, we are looking at not only a team that will win the AL East division, but one that's finally going to make a deep run into the playoffs, unlike the last 2 seasons out of 3 when they made the playoffs only to get bounced right away in the shortest number of games possible. So What is it that has got me so convinced that the Blue Jays are going to overtake the Rays? I mean, it's early on, but they're already 4 or 5 games back, and it's not even the end of April. So what makes me think that the Blue Jays are going to be able to close that ground and end up victorious in the division? Well, as I said, it's partly believing in the team that they've built. I really look at them and I feel like at the end of the season, just with the guys that they've got, knock on wood 1,000 times, everybody's got to stay healthy. But I think they could have a team that is top 5 in all of MLB in rotation, offense, and defense. And I'm looking at all of that and thinking that there's a very good chance that that'll be enough and that they'll be able to beat whoever they need to beat in order to win the championship. I think the bullpen is still a bit of a work in progress. And yeah, I mean, we've seen it with Simber going on the IL and Nate Pearson coming up, and hope to goodness that he can be a contributor and somebody that they can come to rely on out of that bullpen. It really helps that the starters are doing as well as they are. They're not only minimizing opposition scoring, but they're eating up innings, and that's what they need to do as a starting rotation. That means you don't need as much out of your bullpen. They can get proper rest. And if they're good, they have the best chance of staying healthy and staying sharp than if you have to keep running the same guys out there day after day after day. So that's the Blue Jays. What is it? Excuse me as I peek at the notes that I've made here. What is it that makes me think that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to come back to earth? Because I'm not saying that they aren't a good team. Obviously, they are a good team. If you look at their record, if you look at the way that they play, and the Blue Jays have already played them for 3 games, they are a good team. There's no denying that. I really believe that a big part of their hot start is the fact that most of their opponents have been under 500, and they have the ability, they have shown that they are able to beat up on some teams that aren't all that good. The closest they've come to beating a winning team is the Boston Red Sox. They did sweep that series. The Red Sox are 13-13. The Tampa Bay Rays have played 2 series so far this year against teams with records over 500, our Toronto Blue Jays and the defending champion Houston Astros, who are 14-11. The Rays lost both of those series. I don't think they're a bad team, but I think that they're a different team when they face teams that have winning records. So lucky us, the Rays get the White Sox again for 4 games starting today. And we really hope the White Sox can finally win a game because they've got to win sometime, right? And maybe take 1 or 2 of those games from the Rays. Let's hope. Help our Blue Jays out. But after that, starting from May the 2nd, going for a stretch of several games, 38 to be exact, through June the 11th. This is what the Tampa Bay Rays have to face. These are the teams, these are their records. Pittsburgh Pirates, 18-8. New York Yankees, 14-11. Baltimore Orioles, 16-8. New York Mets, also 14-11. Milwaukee, 16-9. Toronto, currently 16-9. LA Dodgers, a bit of a head scratcher at 13-13. Chicago Cubs, 14-10. Boston Red Sox, 13-13, as I said. Minnesota Twins leading their division with a 14-11 record. And finally, the surprising Texas Rangers at 14-10. You can't tell me that the Tampa Bay Rays, once they face that opposition, are going to keep playing at the pace that they've been playing. They will lose some of those games, and the door will be open for a team just like the Blue Jays, who aren't yet firing on all cylinders, but there will be. They will be. And there's an opportunity for them to move in and take the division lead. I really believe that they will, and I'm going to be watching every game. And on that note, That's all that I have for you this evening. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope my voice gets back to normal one of these days. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you again next week at 5:30 p.m.